Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Big Purple Blob. I'm Angie Solley here with Angie Collins. And today we're going to talk about moving in the middle of a pandemic, moving to post, possibly for the first time, or possibly you've moved many times, but now the pandemic is happening. So some new challenges, adding stress on top of stress. And the first thing I wanted to bring up today was the idea of usually we head to post and we have our sponsors there. We're ready to figure things out. We're eager to kind of get some idea of the lay of the land, what the neighborhood is like, where the grocery store is, figuring things out. This is something we've been looking forward to maybe for a year. And so changing that expectation this time around, I will be moving this summer. So I have to really shift my thinking in what I'm expecting because I know it's not going to be like the previous moves that we've had. So I'm thinking along those lines of not being able to interact with our sponsors probably for a couple of weeks, possible quarantine, possible additional isolation there, not being able to be in a car with other people. So I don't know what it's going to look like at everyone's different location, but just really getting serious to consider what your expectations are, because that disappointment adds so much pressure and drama, I think, to our move. That disappointment is not really an emotion that we have to carry around that's really helpful to us. So there are emotions that are hard to go through, but when we're looking at disappointment, it's not often one that helps us be our best selves and get really active and show up in a positive way and meet everyone at post in disappointment is not necessarily helpful. So I think really getting serious about what your expectations are and examining that could be helpful for all of us. Angie, what do you think?
I think it's right. Getting ready for that disappointment is what we need to sort of prepare for. But the first thing would be in order to understand what that disappointment might look like, is to check on what the reality of the situation is. And that's going to be different from post to post, right? And I know that clothes are aware of the situation, they're aware of the actual reality on ground. So it's important to reach out to them to figure out what is the reality. And of course, you'll probably receive a sponsor, but that, like you said, Angie, that interaction with your sponsor once you get to post could change drastically from post to post. Like you said, you won't be able to do the regular grocery shopping in the car with someone. You won't be able to walk around in some places to get the lay of the land and see what's going on. So it's important to really understand what that reality is going to be before you get to post. And if you have children, it's important to help them to understand as well what that reality might look like. If you have older kids who sort of been part of this lifestyle for a while, they might be used to getting really excited about new school, new friends, but that might not be as easy now while we're in the middle of a pandemic, and getting out and about and meeting people is going to be a little bit different. It's going to look a little bit different, but that communication is the key in understanding what your reality might look like once you do get to post.
Yeah, and I think also we can, if we're talking to our kids about this, we can try to strategically replace something. So if there is that usual excitement about a new school, or that usual conversation that you have with your kids about preparing them for the new place, or when you arrive saying like, look, we're going to meet our neighbors and we're going to go to this welcome party and get to know some new people. So if you know that those things are not going to be happening, you might be able to pick a specific activity that is something that is joyful for you. So not to add to your to-do list of another activity, like now I have to have a dinner ready every night because I've committed to a family dinner every night, but think about your family and something that really is bringing joy to your family. So maybe that's watching cartoons together in the morning. Maybe it's playing a game of cards. Maybe you want to try, try a painting class together, or whatever would work for your family, and talking to them about, when we arrive, I want to try to do something fun. So my idea is that we're going to watch Saturday morning cartoons, but not just on Saturday. We're going to do that every morning, wake up a little early and watch cartoons together, or we're going to have, you know, French toast for breakfast, or just finding something that would create joy for your family. Specifically, if it's working out together and finding silly workouts on YouTube that you all dress up in 80s sweatbands and leg warmers, and finding something that everyone can look forward to, and that you're deliberately committing to, like, let's try this for 2 weeks and see what happens with that. I think can put something that everyone is bonding, knows is going to happen. It can add a little bit of consistency and routine in the middle of that complete upheaval. When you're in an empty house, we don't have our things with us. You know how it always is when you arrive at post, missing that garlic press and the good knives. And so if you can create something there that you intentionally want to provide as a source of joy and nourishment for you and your family.
Right. And a couple of things that you said, Angie, I wanted to just pinpoint and highlight. And that one thing is the routine. And so you're setting things in place. It could be, brand new things that you're setting in place once you get to post, to sort of build that excitement, right? To make them feel like we are somewhere new and we're having fun, we're bonding together, but also something that you're bringing back from your past, bring back from your actual reality right now. What can you continue to do? And the other thing you said was actually have that conversation with your kids, involve them. What is it that you really love doing with us as a family? Can we, like you said, the Saturday morning cartoons, we want to make sure we keep that in place, Mom. Every Saturday morning, we love waking up and having pancakes and watching Saturday morning cartoons. And then what other routines can you bring into your new reality? And that other important word that you said was intention. So make an intention. You're going to set intentions. What are we doing? How are we bonding? How are we sort of bringing our family together and moving on into this new zone and our new reality? It's not going to look like what we know right now is our reality, but there are certain parts of it that we can create and that we can bring into it for our new posting, that's going to still have that predictable sort of base, so that especially if you have younger kids, it's really important for them to understand, things are all crazy right now. It's all up in, it's very different from what it was before, but there are certain things that I can predict. I still know I'm going to wake up, we're going to have breakfast together as a family. I still know that Saturday morning cartoons are there. And so it's important to sort of have that and continue being a family. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were so focused on what can we do? What can we do? We have all this time. Let's bake bread. And everyone around the world is baking bread, right? And so it's fun and important to bring that into it as well, but also, what have you been doing that's, the pandemic's been going on for a while. What have you been doing that's working, that's helping your kids to feel included and to feel like they're part of something?
I think that's right. And it's a priority, making it a priority. Like, if bedtime stories happen in your house regularly, it's so easy to let that slip. And I don't want this to come off as like, make sure you do your thing every single night, because I'm a parent of 4. And of course, there are times I, let our routines slip and I forget. But as we move, there's the time difference, and some of us are suffering from jet lag. And it's so easy to feel like, I have so much to do. I'm starting a new job. I have to figure all of this out, and to let the bedtime stories go, or I'm going to be tired. I woke up at 3 a.m, all of these things. And if you just deliberately bring yourself back to remember, I think that bedtime stories might be more important than the other stuff that I'm doing. If you make that commitment to just remember how valuable that can be, and how important those moments you can have together are really going to help everything else go a little bit more smoothly. The pancakes are not just pancakes, right? It's the ritual and the time together, and giving our family and ourselves some consistency. a little bit more relaxing than adding to the to-do list.
Right, exactly. And I know that parents have the strength in them to sort of focus on the family. But Angie, what if there are parents at home right now who are listening in? They're getting ready to move to their new post. They know what routines they want to keep in place. They know what sort of rituals they have that really brings their family together. They're having these conversations with their kids, but there's still that aspect of I'm going to a new place and I know what my reality is, and my reality, Angie, it might suck.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I deal with that in terms of my kids, the social situation, them being left behind from, kids who might be at post right now, might still be connecting because they've gone through something together. And these sort of things sort of bring us tighter together, right? But then entering a new space, how do you enter a new space during a pandemic when schools are closed? People aren't going into work. There's no compound to go visit. What kind of information, or maybe something that you're even thinking about as you get ready to move to your new post?
Okay, I'm going to say something here that might sound a little unexpected from a teen and parent counselor. So I'm going to say embrace the suck, right? I think it is kind of important to recognize that it's going to be hard. This is not an easy time in our life. Just moving in general, it's not relaxing. It's not something that everything is going to go smoothly. So everyone can kind of realize that. And now there's a pandemic. We don't know how it's going to look when we arrive in that new place. We don't know what the protocol is going to be for following COVID restrictions in that location. If we have developed some comfort in our own location where we are now. So I think it is kind of valuable to realize to know that there is going to be a struggle and to be ready for that, not in the way of like, I can handle it, I can beat all of this, but to know I'm going to probably cry at some point. I'm going to be exhausted, because I think the other tendency we have is to say, I can do it, it'll be fine. And we're just kind of pushing that suck to the side. We're pushing that all the terrible times, like I'm going to be happy all the time. And it doesn't work. We cannot be happy all the time. And that is not the goal of life. We're humans and we have emotions, and we're going to be happy and we're going to be sad and we're going to be exhausted and we're going to be breaking down. And our kids are going to have the same emotions, and we don't want to be robots. So we don't want everyone to be happy all the time. We're going to the move and there's a pandemic and we're happy all the time and happy all the time. So it makes sense that we should have some moments of serious concern, and we should have moments of tears, and we should have worry, and speaking about that, saying out loud, hey, you guys, I noticed today that I'm really excited about some aspects of moving, and I'm also really nervous about these things. So admitting that we have concerns and admitting that we're stressed out and saying our emotions out loud, I think that gives our kids some idea of checking in with themselves. Oh, my mom, mentioned what emotion she's in right now. What emotion am I in right now? And just starting to build that awareness and being able to admit, we're sad, this is hard, I feel like I'm melting down today. Those kinds of things are okay, that's human. And reaching out to a friend, calling someone that you know is there to listen. Right. What do you think, Angie? What do you do in those?
Yeah, it's the same. The same thoughts that you have is understanding how we're feeling, being okay with how we're feeling, accepting how we're feeling, and dealing with how we're feeling, and talking about how we're feeling, right? It's okay. You'll find a lot of people going through the same thing right now within your family. So it's really important to have those discussions and to sort of accept how you're feeling. And to add to that, I would also caution, and I'm going to say this word because I am in Virginia right now. We're almost, I wouldn't say we're on the flip side of things, but things are opening up. My kids are in hybrid school right now. I'm going to take a sip of water. My kids are in hybrid school right now. And I hopped on a call last night with the school counselors, and they were talking about how, the transitions going and things. And they were actually kind of shocked that kids were so excited for things to be back to normal. So they had all these grand plans of what it's going to be like when things are back to normal. And they went back and it's hybrid and it's not normal. So they're dealing with, or not dealing with, but they're trying to help kids transition through this next phase of normal. And so understanding that they found that kids were finding ways to handle the situation that was, the full pandemic, quarantine, lockdown. It sucked, they dealt with it, but they had these expectations that things would be different and things would be, much more social. But our reality is not quite back to what our pre-pandemic reality is. So helping kids understand what each transition what might look like, helping them to understand that for the rest of their lives, they're going to be processing emotions. And so whatever phase they're in, whether it's in the pandemic, transferring to a new post, dealing with a new job, a new school, anything that they're going through. So this is a perfect time to actually face that and understand how I'm feeling at this moment, what that means, and really get connected with, I'm feeling sad, but what does that mean? How does that feel in my body? How does that feel in my mind? How do I express myself when I'm feeling sad? What can I personally do about it? And one important thing is to really have that discussion around what might happen next and how our reality continues to change.
That's such a good point. And it's that point, I so often make this with my my own teens and the teens that I work with, is you never know what's going to happen next, right? We really never know what's going to happen next. And we get to places in our life where we feel very certain. I absolutely know that, final exams are going to happen. That's obvious. Everyone is certain that final exams are going to happen. Well, my son's senior year, he didn't have final exams. The pandemic happened.
Right.
So it's things that there can be things in life that we really think we know for certain how it's going to be, but we don't. So I think you're right. It's just, we're always dealing with emotions, where life is always throwing unexpected things at us. So recognizing that we can have emotions and we can change behaviors and we can overcome things, but just recognizing that emotions are there no matter what. So the more often we can recognize what our emotions are, instead of, for myself, for many years, I was like, no, I don't want to feel that emotion. I don't want to feel jealous. I don't, pushing those emotions away and trying to feel something else, rather allowing that emotion and recognizing those feelings.
Right. And so I always like to, so what kind of action can we take, right? So our action here is helping our kids and ourselves really, right, understand our emotions, having those discussions, really learning about ourselves and taking this time. So let's say we have parents who are listening then. They know the reality, right? They know what they're getting into. They're understanding the importance of handling emotions, saying what they're feeling, understanding that their kids might be feeling the same or something completely different. We're all going to transition through this differently. We're going to feel things differently, even though seemingly within one family, you're going through that all together, right? What is our next step then? What can we do for parents who are saying, okay, I'm feeling sad, my kid's feeling sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now my reality is it sucks, I'm feeling sad. Now what can I do as a family, or what can I do as a parent, or what can I do for myself? What might you say to one of those parents?
So I think your example of the kids being back at school and talking to that counselor brings to mind that, so we're feeling really sad and we're in that moment right now. Maybe you're talking about that and your kids are feeling sad and stressed out, and reminding them, you know what, this is going to change our perspective. I've never stayed sad in my life for a whole year. So this is different than like people facing depression, serious depression. Obviously, just for those of us who are living our daily life and feeling sad, one emotion doesn't last for usually a full week, right? There are times when we giggle, and then there's a time when we feel frustrated. So other emotions are coming in. So talking to our kids and remembering that one emotion doesn't stay with us. Sometimes we feel like this is going to suck up my whole, I'm going to feel like this forever. This is going to suck up the rest of my life. And just remembering, like, look at how that happened. The pandemic happened, but first you used to, for years, maybe you resisted school, or you might not have looked forward to going to school in the morning. And here you are, glad to be at school 2 days a week. And it's something you've been looking forward to. So reminding ourselves and our kids, sometimes this kind of stuff can change. Our sadness is here right now, and we can be honest about that, but probably we're not going to feel exactly the same 10 days from now, because other things will have happened in our life. So maybe just reminding ourselves that those emotions change and life changes. What do you think, Angie? What do you say to parents?
I'm thinking the same thing, and those emotions are really important. And also, if you're looking at sort of action steps to take with kids, right now is a good time as they're possibly sitting in boredom. Maybe it's me as a former teacher and parent, where that boredom and that sitting in nothingness is such a great space to sort of not just your emotions and getting in touch with yourself, but getting in touch with who you are, what you want, your traits, your characteristics, where your interests lie. And that's just you as yourself, whether you're a parent or a child yourself. And so really understanding that this moment in time, this is who you are, and finding ways to sort of explore that. And oftentimes, when kids are bored these days, they run to social media or the TV. And we as parents might think, well, it's helping them cope, it's helping them get through things. And for a moment, that's fine, because it is, because social media helps them to stay connected to people, watching TV helps them to pass the time, doing other things. But it's also important to remember just sitting in boredom helps us to sort of gather our thoughts and really dig deep to find out who we are. And I would also say, to use this time as a way to focus on not necessarily what you want to do after the pandemic is sort of over, but what kind of person you want to be and how you might show up. And I don't know if I'm expressing this well, but I would hope that kids who have been sort of in isolation for such a long time would have an easy transition back to that hybrid schedule and then eventually back to the full-time school schedule. But there's certain characteristics or certain things that we're doing that aren't on a developmentally appropriate level. We're not, extending ourselves. We're not meeting people. We're not really taking risks at this point. If you're sitting at home, there's not much risk taking that you might be doing as a 13-year-old kid at home right now in lockdown. And so as a parent, you might be asking, what kinds of ways can I have my kid really get in touch with themselves, but really start to really explore things like taking risks, things that they would be getting in the classroom that they're not getting right now. And that might be, and I'll use my own kids as an example, that might be just calling someone out of the blue, and that could be a friend, or that could be asking for information. One of my daughters is doing a genealogy project for school, and she's like, where's Nana? Where's my grandma, my Nana from again? What part of the Philippines? Call her and ask her. Text her if you need to. So have these conversations. Anything, your child best, but what little tiny steps can they be taking so that they get in a habit of taking risks, or whatever other character trait that they could be developing at this time, rather than just sitting at home and sort of doing nothing, right?
Yeah, and we have to be creative about it. Like sometimes taking a risk is turning on your video camera in the middle of the Zoom class, right? Like so many of the kids I talk to are resistant to do that. So it is, we can find ways to incorporate that. I think that's such a good question, Angie. And remembering that we can go out and bike ride. Like, do you think you can follow this map and for a teenager maybe and go on a bike ride and find this place, something that they haven't done before. There are ways to figure it out. We just have to be creative and remember that we can find ways to incorporate that into their life.
Right, right. Well, you'll be exploring all of this pretty soon at your brand new post.
That's right. I'll have to rewatch and remind myself, okay, I can be stressed out.
Okay, kids, this is what mom said. Watch the video.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks so much for the talk, Angie.
Yeah, this was fun. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Big Purple Blob Morning Show. It has been a pleasure to share our stories with you. Now, we want to hear from you. Tell us your story or send us your questions and comments about the show. Our email, as well as the resources mentioned during the podcast, can be found in the show notes. Lastly, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with others. And remember, we are here for you.